everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be a full-on review of Ahsoka Season 1. Now there are likely to be spoilers throughout for the entire season, so just beware when going to this overall video. And you can check out my reviews of some individual episodes within the channel of the series, and I'll leave some links within the description. Now overall, Ahsoka was the 5th live-action Star Wars series streaming on Disney+. It follows the likes of The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Andor. It centres of course on a title character who has been a long time established Star Wars personality ever since appearing first in the Star Wars Clone Wars 3D animated series, which saw her as a young Padawan being trained by Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker. Now that series' conclusion saw her as one of the last survivors of the Order 66 initiative to eliminate all Jedi, but her story continued with the Star Wars Rebels animated series, where we saw much older and experienced Ahsoka finally coming face to face with Anakin once more, only this time when he became Darth Vader. Now Ahsoka returned in the 5th episode of the 2nd season of The Mandalorian, which marked the first live-action adaptation of the character being played by popular actress Rosario Dawson. We then saw her return in the 6th episode of The Book of Boba Fett alongside Luke Skywalker. And in this series, the story takes place in between the Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, where we see Ahsoka reuniting with her friends from the Rebel series, in particular Sabine Wren and Hera Syndulla, who is now a general of the New Republic. They yearn to search for their close friend Ezra Bridger, who was instrumental in the defeat of the villainous Admiral Thrawn by taking himself and the general into an exiled part of the galaxy. Now Ahsoka comes across many antagonists, including former Jedi Baylan Skoll and his apprentice Shin Hati, who both work for Night Sister Morgan Elsbeth, who is allied with Thrawn and the quest to bring him back from exile. So Ahsoka and her friends strive to find Ezra and at the same time prevent Thrawn from resurfing back to the galaxy. So if you've been watching my channel, you'll know that I've nearly felt that all of the Star Wars shows from Disney Plus have been largely disappointing. Even the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, which were quite solid but never truly extraordinary. I just felt that the shows have been largely lackluster and underwhelming, not really capitalising on the full potential when you are cornering the Star Wars universe. They just overall feel like unnecessary stories that didn't need to be told. And sadly, Ahsoka also falls into this category. Now I do think there was much more potential in seeing an older Ahsoka and looking at how much powerful she has become as a Jedi, and that we could have had some really interesting developments in the Star Wars continuity post Return of the Jedi, especially when seeing Ahsoka and potentially Luke together as what we saw in the Book of Boba Fett. But I think the series' biggest failure is that there is simply no story here to tell for Ahsoka. There's no substantial plot to really compel you to the series. It's been said by many fans and reviewers, and it's a sentiment that still rings true, that this series felt less like an Ahsoka series and much more like a 5th season of the Rebel series. Now we do know that show creator Dave Filoni's love for all of his characters, and in that series I think his affection has really derailed him from actually coming up with an interesting premise. Now the main narrative for the series is that we had to find Ezra and also to prevent dark forces from finding Thrawn, and that's really it. And I really feel that with a couple of minor adjustments, you could have easily had this story without Ahsoka actually in it. You simply could have had Sabine Wren and Hera search for Ezra, because Ahsoka doesn't really do anything pivotal in order for them to find Ezra. So apart from this long standing search, there really isn't nothing to the show. And that's the fault really in terms of the writing, and the narrative really feel that it's dragged out. And that's something I could really say about all of these Disney Plus shows, is that they really feel like they're kind of movie scripts that have been dragged out into multi-episodic series. And even when we finally see both Ezra and Thrawn in about the 6th episode, it's nothing truly standout or exciting. And this is because they were brought into the story so late in the game that they don't really have any time to have any meaningful impact. They really should have been revealed, in my opinion, at the end of episode 2, where we could have had the first opener centering on Ahsoka, what she's been up to, have some allusions or references to Anakin, of course, we come to expect that, and then episode 2 really hit into the story and where it could have progressed further on after that. This would have provided a lot more time to really establish Thrawn as a major threat and why Ezra is so important. Now as a character herself, I think Ahsoka doesn't really have any arc at all. She comes in all-knowing and stoic, she has a couple of visions of Anakin, and then after being found underwater and awakening, she dresses all in white. She talks to a couple of space whales, and then that's literally it. They didn't really cut deep into her character, and whilst the visions of her and Anakin were a nice callback to the Clone Wars series, and it was okay seeing Hayden Christensen as Anakin once more, but again, these scenes didn't do anything to further develop Ahsoka. She's still the same person after all of these visions as what she was before. And I really think it's a bit of a disservice to both the lead character and also Rosario Dawson, who I really feel is a great actress. And all the other characters really didn't fare that much better. Whether it was Hela, who really was just a bystander for the most part, a character that really wasn't needed in this story. The same could be said also for Morgan Elsbeth, who we thought initially would be the secondary prime antagonist after General Thrawn, but as the story continued, she fades more and more into insignificance, and this is underlined in the finale as she's left behind to take on the heroes whilst Thrawn and the other Night Sisters get away. So this was a real waste of a character. We then talk about Sabine Wren, who probably had the most developed arc out of any character, where in the beginning we see much more of that reluctant, nonchalant hero. She fails to address the crowds and establish herself as a hero. We see her coming into some early conflict with Ahsoka, but we do see her learn to a degree over the course of the story to become far more considered and selfless and much more mature and more responsible. We see her become much more force sensitive towards the end, which has been questioned by many fans when you look at her lack of force sensibility at the beginning of the story. It's not exactly what I would call stellar character development by any means, but there was some semblance of a journey within this particular personality. Now, the most potential was with both Baylan and Shin, and their dynamic at the beginning of the story was seen as both master and apprentice. But as we saw that connection become much more fractured as the story progressed, as both questioned what exactly they're doing, what is their role within this galaxy and the universe, and where is their overall destiny going. And it causes them both to change direction. Now, this could have had some really interesting developments, but again, simply not enough was done in terms of their overall characters. When we look at Shin, she was mostly all stoic looks and pensive stares and action poses. Whenever she was away from Baylan, there wasn't really anything interesting to her personality. And Baylan himself was easily the best performance within the series from the sadly late departed Ray Stevenson, who really could have done with much more context in terms of what exactly the character of Baylan was searching for. We see that he's lost faith in the Jedi and he's searching for something much more grand, but of course we never reach the full realisation of that character's journey. We see him in the finale standing over the mountaintops looking at statues of the king and his son from the Mortis story arcs from the Clone Wars. But again, we don't really go any further than that, and sadly, if we do see Baylan returning once more within the Star Wars universe, it will have to be recasted in the role. And when we come to disappointing characters, we have to really fall on the side of Ezra. All that build up from episode 1, trying to make him as important as possible, the whole narrative and having to search for him, even in episode 1, where we see the addressing of the crowds, where they reference Ezra as being the integral individual in bringing down the Galactic Empire, as if they had completely forgotten about that other person named Luke Skywalker, who, if I seem to remember, was quite influential in bringing down the Empire as well. But in terms of Ezra, he was just such a nondescript character. There was nothing special about him at all. Everything from when we see Sabine reuniting with him in episode 6, where we see him in constant fight sequences after, even when he wields his own lightsaber, there's nothing really thrilling or anything compelling to truly draw you to this character. It's not really a fault of the actor that's playing him, it's just again the way that the character has been written. And having watched the series, there is still no explanation of what exactly Ezra was doing in this other side of the galaxy for 10 years or so, and why exactly Thrawn didn't locate him a lot earlier. Now, in terms of Thrawn, there was even more hype because of fans' adulation for the Star Wars expanded universe, where Thrawn was a massive villain. And in this rendition, I just don't think he landed the way that everybody wanted him to. I think that actor Lars Mikkelsen had a certain poise about him in terms of the visualization, but Thrawn didn't really have that menace, and he's a character that I've always questioned, given the fact that he doesn't have any Sith powers or other magical abilities. Yes, he is a supreme tactical strategist, but when you surround him with other powerful beings such as the Night Sisters, they could easily kill him and take everything that he's got for themselves. So again, just another underwhelming moment in this introduction of Thrawn. Now, if we do get any potential season 2 of Ahsoka, or any continuation of this universe, then there might be more scope for developing Thrawn as a great character, but I'm not really sure at this stage. And of course, the biggest problem with all of these shows is that we all know where everything is eventually heading. Now, this season wasn't all that bad. I think visually the show had some bright moments. The overall aesthetic was much more appealing than what we saw in the darker, grittier contrast within Andor. I think overall we had the best lightsaber duels in all of the Disney Star Wars content so far. And at the very least, there was very little in terms of deconstructing these characters just for the sake of it, or just trying to be much more gritty or realistic. So when I look at Ahsoka overall, as I mentioned before, I just think it's again a backward step in a sense that it just feels unnecessary. Whilst we really could have done with some forward movement in terms of the character, all we basically had was a falling back into the Rebels characters. And there was nothing else to it. And I've said constantly that if Star Wars is ever to potentially prosper and carry on, it has to take the continuity forward. They eventually do have to deal with the massive elephant in the room that is the Disney Star Wars trilogy, and then progress forward from there with newer ideas, newer concepts and newer characters. I think Ahsoka overall was probably better than Obi-Wan Kenobi and the Book of Boba Fett. And I suppose at the very least I'll manage to stay with Ahsoka all the way through, unlike Andor, of which I got very bored with after the third episodes. So in terms of Ahsoka, not an absolute disaster of a show, just once more a very underwhelming Star Wars story. So those are my overall thoughts and feelings and overall review of Ahsoka Season 1. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you have any other topics or subjects or television series that you'd like to see me cover, then also let me know within the comments and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves and I will see you very, very soon.